What's going on, workforce? Brian here. Today, we're talking about Dark Knight and their focus, job, role, whatever you want to call it, in PvP. So how about we feast on some Frontlines and just do this thing? So Dark Knight, in context with all the PvP changes that we've gotten with Stormblood, feels fantastic. It's got a lot of, I guess, it's hard to say kind of hate building utility because that's not the aspect of PvP, but it's got a lot of crowd control and it's got a lot of ways that it can be devastating if used appropriately in the right context. You've got a draw-in effect, you've got a stun, you've got your own HP and MP restoring ability, and then you have some even status debuffs that you can apply to a target, making them more physically vulnerable, as well as at the same time making it less easy to heal them. So Dark Knights are a threat whether they're in the Feast or in Frontlines, and as a tank they also are a little bit beefier. Now in the new changes you can easily take down tanks, especially in the Feast if they've been picking up medals, but outside of that kind of concept is that you shouldn't be wary of focusing on a tank because they're not going to be able to be defeated. No, you can definitely take down tanks in the PvP system that we have in Stormblood, but you shouldn't also ignore those tanks. So crowd control is shifted. So like I said, Dark Knight has a pull-in effect and it has a stun. So it's very devastating and deadly at close range. Pairing them up, like from just a strategy perspective in Frontlines, if you have a warrior and a Dark Knight, that is kind of the two tank combo system that really makes it devastating. The tank with the ability to apply a heavy effect and then the Dark Knight being able to draw them back in. Being able to separate players from their group and be able to focus in on those players is really what the Dark Knight is going to add to your group. And so there's a lot of strength there, so don't ignore the Dark Knight if you're facing off against them. And then at the same time, don't be worried if you think Dark Knights aren't formidable in PvP. They most certainly are. So with the larger HP pool and with just the crowd control abilities, Dark Knight is a great tank if you're looking at tanking in PvP. Generally, again, doesn't matter Feast or Frontlines. So let's go ahead now and take a look at the skills that they bring to the table and talk about them and their combos. Alright, so to get to your PvP profile skills, under character and PvP profile. And then under the job tab you can see everything you need. So you've got two combos, the Power Slash combo and the Soul Eater combo. Now the Power Slash combo is really powerful. It's important to know from a potency perspective from all three, even though that this is 1000 and then this goes to 1500 on your potency, these are both going to equal out the same potency damage. So it's more about what skill do you want to finish with than anything else has ever been. So you have your Hard Slash, Spinning Slash, and then Power Slash. If you look at the additional effects, reducing target's HP recovered by healing magic potency by 20% for 15 seconds. That's a very powerful debuff that you can apply to your target. Then under your Soul Eater combo, Hard Slash, Siphon Strike, and then Soul Eater. Soul Eater is going to take the 100% of the damage dealt as hit points and restore 1000 MP each and every time. So this is going to heal you, and this is going to restore MP to you. MP is so important because you have Unmend, which is going to use 2500 of your MP. It's quite a big chunk, but this is the ability that does the draw in. This is going to take somebody on the opposing team and bring them right into the center of your team, so it's quite powerful. It's got a range of 15 yams, so it only is going to bring them in 10, so it's not going to necessarily get them right there, but it is very important. It's also important to note that it's got a recast of 30 seconds, so you can't use it all the time. That's, I feel like, maybe a little bit too long. Hopefully we'll see an adjustment there at some point, but that's just my opinion. Blood Splitter has a potency of 2000, and this is where your blood gauge is going to come into effect. With a potency of 2000, it's going to be one of your hardest hitting abilities, but it's also going to add a 2-second silence to your target. This is great when especially going up against any kind of casters. You're going to effectively take away some of their toolset for at least one rotation of an ability. The Blackest Night works very similar to that in PvE, so it's going to create a barrier around yourself or a target that's going to absorb 20% of your maximum HP. This is a great shield. It's going to last for 5 seconds, and if the full 20% is absorbed, your blood gauge is going to fill with 20 additional points. This also has a cost of 2500, thus making Soul Eater, your ability to restore your MP, very important, because if you can apply this to a target, whether it's a healer or DPS, you could effectively, quote unquote, save them as 20% of your HP can be quite helpful in PvP. Low blow, it's got a potency of 750, so it does do damage, and it also has the additional effect of stun, which is going to last for 2 seconds. So outside of unmend, your low blow is also kind of a crowd control. This is going to allow, hopefully, a DPS to be able to get off their adrenaline rush if you decide to use it on them. Plunge is a gap closer. It's got a 30-second recast, just like unmend, and so this also has a potency of 500. It's important to note that if you get a kill or an assist on the target that you use plunge, you can also get this to reset its timer, which is really quite fantastic. Soul Survivor is going to increase the damage taken on your target by 10% and restores 25% of your maximum HP and MP, and increases your blood gauge by 50 if your target is KO'd before the effect expires. Now this is going to last for 10 seconds. 10 seconds is a long time in PvP. Usually things can go down pretty quickly. It does have a 60-second cooldown, so just keep that in mind. But that additional 10% and the HP and blood gauge that it restores to you can really make you quite effective in PvP. Grit is going to reduce your damage taken and dealt by 20%. Obviously, it's your tank stance. I would only recommend using this when things are going bad. If you want to help and make it harder for you to kill, this is fantastic. But for the most part, you're not going to need it. And then Aegis Boom is your group-wide defensive boost that's going to help reduce damage by everybody by 25% and last for 15 seconds. This obviously is based off your adrenaline gauge, so you're not going to be able to use this all the time. Additional abilities and traits are going to all be up to you. By default, I think you have Recuperate and you have Safeguard, but I really kind of switch that to Bolt because I like to be able to both get in and out of places quickly. Safeguard's good, especially if you're trying to reduce the damage that you take. It's very handy. Purify's good to remove any kind of status effects. Muse for MP. You can definitely take this on a Dark Knight, and it is quite powerful. But it's going to be up to you what you decide to take. Recuperate is going to be an insta-heal with 60-second recast. So it's, it is helpful, especially if you don't have a healer around. Same thing applies to traits. Kind of play around with what feels best for the way you want to play this job. I'm not going to try to give you advice here. The standard seems to be decreased damage taken, increased HP, and increased damage dealt. But you can increase your MP regeneration. You can increase these various other things depending on if you find yourself always short of MP or if you find yourself running out of TP. So now let's talk about some general tips and tricks when taking Dark Knight into any of the PvP modes. First, if you're comfortable with it, go ahead and make a macro that's going to mark the target that you're focusing in on. That way it communicates to everybody that we can focus in on this one target. And especially if you're then bringing your crowd control, it's going to make it that much more difficult for that target to be able to get away from you guys. And so, it's a win-win. It's really going to kind of base off your personality. I've played with some tanks who don't feel comfortable with marking, and it's okay if the DPS does it, but if nothing else, bring that to the table. So outside of that macro, here's another macro that's going to show you how you auto-focus in on the target that is marked. This is going to be great for anybody in PvP, just to help focus in on the target, especially if you got a lot of chaos running around on the screen at the same time. But get in the habit of that. Get in the habit of trying to, charge forward and kind of take some pressure off of the healers and your DPS. They're going to be able to bring more of the hurt and be able to bring out more of the damage, but you should be able to rack up the assists one after another, especially as a tank. The other grand tip, especially when running in Frontlines, is it's easy to lose your party. It's best that whether you have one or two or more tanks, that you mark a specific tank with some kind of, something that you can see, like an X or circle or triangle. Usually these are reserved for healers, but we also want to mark your healers. So that way, just globally, you're able to see and focus in on the various targets and see that. So with the tank being marked, the reason is that if you designate them the leader so that the entire group can sit here and kind of surround, and at least if nothing else, if you can't see the X and you can't see the O, you're in trouble and you want to get back to that as quickly as possible. Having everybody kind of grouped together is going to bring out the strengths of each job, especially that of the Dark Knight, but you can then have some kind of synergy. DPSs don't have a lot of crowd control for the most part, and so you want to be able to team up with your tank on their crowd control so you can execute your limit break or your, adrenaline gauge ability. But anyway, those are just some simple tips. Hopefully you enjoy your Dark Knight in PvP. Hopefully this video has been a help. Please let me know in the comments below what you think. Anyway, for Work to Game, my name's Brian. Thanks so much for watching this video, and we do hope to see you on our next. But until then, hope you have a fantastic week. Take care.
Thanks for watching. YouTube has a pretty cool video waiting for you over here. Our latest vlog is down below. For those of you new, subscribe is over here. And all of our other contact info is just right below me here. Thanks for watching.